Yeah, baby. We're live again. If you're watching live, if you're not watching live, then we have been archived. And thank you for joining us either way. Dan Shooter here on Drum Talk TV, coming to you from Globe, Arizona, 100 miles east of Phoenix, up in the mountains where it's cooler and cooling off. Here with first-time offender, first-time hazing victim, Jay Dittamo, all the way from New Jersey. Brand new album from Nektar. I can't wait to talk to you about. Welcome, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's nice to meet you, Dan. Thanks for having me on your show. This is wonderful.
Thank you. Really appreciate you making time to come on, especially like 9-something o'clock in the evening, New Jersey time. And
that's musicians waking up time.
That's right. Or sound check time, right?
Yeah, that's it, right.
I'm going to share a window because I want everyone to see this really awesome album cover for the new Nektar album, Mission to Mars. This is really a great album, folks. And for those of you who don't know, Jay is somewhat new to Nektar. And Nektar has a history that goes all the way back to 1969 throughout the 70s, had a gap to kind of regroup through the 80s and 90s, came back in 2000, and here we are many years later with some new music that has, Jay, I would say, I hope it's fair to say, a lot of hints and nods to 70s prog and 70s rock. Let's talk about your take on the music that you guys have put out, and very happy for you that you found a way to Nektar. You can also tell us how that came about. Of course, the former drummer passed away, Ron.
Yeah, Ron Howden.
Yeah, great drummer, great guy. Let's talk about that first. How did you come into the fold? What was that like? Big shoes to fill, legendary band with decades of relevant music. And then let's talk about the new album.
Okay. So how that came about was Rich Chalanda and Kendall Scott and I had a band called Flying Dreams, and we were doing some gigs around, try to, like any band, try to get some kind of legs to move in the business. And we were doing a prog show because Rich Rich was in Nektar back in the late 70s. Mm-hmm. So he what had happened was what we ended up doing was I ended up doing a show, and next thing I know, I got this little English, I'm a big guy, little English dude sitting next to me smoking a cigarette, and it was like we knew each other forever, and we just start talking, and it's Ron Howden, and he goes, Jay, man, he goes, I love how you play drums, and I go, oh, thanks, I've been playing for a long time, and I come from a music family, and I started playing that when I was 5 and doing my thing, and he goes, you would sound great with Nektar. And I'm like looking at him going, wait a minute, you're the drummer in Nektar. Why would I sound good with Nektar? He goes, well, look, we're getting back together again. We're going to do some shows, and we're going to do a new album, and we got some stuff going on. And Richie's going to come in and fill and play with the band, and we're doing shows. And I just got diagnosed with cancer. So I don't know what's going to happen. So I said, Ron, really nice of you, I guess in a sideways way of asking me, maybe I could cover for him. And I didn't ask for it, but I said to him, look, I'll be like a spare tire. If you need me to fill in, I learn songs really quick. And I'll give you some history where my not photography, but my playing with other players throughout the world over 60 years always has a connection. It's like a link of a chain. So I said to Ron, go do your thing and, get better. And if you feel like you can't do a gig, I'll jump in. He's a lefty. I'll just use your kit, and I'll just turn it righty, and we'll move it around. And then I'll play the gigs. When you feel better, you jump back on. I never had to hear anything. So, so for the next, I guess, 7 or 8 years, they went out, they did an album, they toured, then COVID hit, and then they weren't able to tour anymore. So everybody wasn't able to, lockdown. So we ended up, they got back together to once everything sort of norm. And Ron, what happened was real quickly is that he ended up going to rehearsal, and now that, mind you, they have another album, and now they're going to work on another album.
Right.
And they were, and Ron came over and he's listening to the tracks. Drive, I'll go home. And by the way, guy, they said, we really want to see, we know that you're going to be able to do the gig. And we knew that Ron had asked you, and I already had a connection with Kendall Scott, keyboardist for now Nektar, and with Rich Chalanda. So we ended up, we got together and I learned like 3 songs or something, and it clicked right away. And my thought on it was, I don't know if I want to be with a band. I'm a freelance guy. I'm like my own musician. You kind of lose your identity of who you are. And if you notice, most of the famous bands that are out there that really you knew who the guys in Rush were. You knew most of the guys that were in Yes were. You knew the guys that were in the Beatles, obviously. And they became a personality within the band. So it was the band as the sort of the store name of the band. And then people gravitated toward the musicians themselves because they had a personality that kind of drove them to liking the band even more so.
Right.
So bands, things like that doesn't happen too often. I'm worried about, and once again, I wasn't worried about that because I subbed for so many famous bands over the years. I worked in Frank Zappa's band right after Frank died. So what heavy gig can you get more than a Zappa gig with all those killing drummers, which I know
institution of amazing drummers. Yeah. And I was like kind of like this last of the Mohicans on it. I auditioned for Frank. That's a whole other story. We'll probably do a whole section on that on another show. But cool.
I auditioned for Frank when I was 22 back in 1981, and that's a whole other story in itself. But what happened with the Nektar thing, and we'll keep it with Nektar, is that I played. It sounded so good. I said, you know something, I got to do this gig. I just feel like Ron is saying, look, if anybody's going to do it, you do it and do it justice and move it on. And then we basically went into the studio with the material that Ron was going to be working with. And I knocked the album out in 2 days. So
wow.
I played that whole album in like real fast. And we did it relatively live. What we did, so we ended up doing the album that way where we it stays fresh, that when you do basic tracks and do all that kind of stuff, it keeps it in the realm of and the thing that was cool, we had Deco Records so we have a record company, so it was like we weren't just doing this and doing it on our own, but Nektar was never really like a Pink Floyd or a Yes, or they didn't have that. But the funny part, I was never really a Nektar fan, because I remember when I listened to it growing up, I was listening to, I came from a big band jazz and background, and then the Beatles came, and I was like, wow, I get to play. I was playing the records when I was a kid, and then the Beatles came, and I was like, wow, I could get to play with kids because they all wanted to play music back in the early 60s. So for me, all the heavy rock guys that were playing jazz, if there was no such thing as a rock player. Carmine Appice is really, I played with guys from the Rascals, and Dino Danelli was like, he swung. Those guys are like, they swung the beat. So I did a seminar at Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Juma Santos from the Percussions on Bitches Brew. And we did an African drum set sort of thing. And I explained that, where the original rock and roll, I did a gig with Chuck Berry, a couple of gigs with Chuck Berry, and I swung it like that swing. And when we played
cool. Talk about swing in your background. I want to show a video clip of you playing some jazz. This is Jay Dittamo and friends. Jay actually has friends, folks, no matter what you hear from Jason Gianni. Okay, Jay has friends. Here he is playing with his friends. Check this out. There's a lot of finesse in your playing. I have a technique question for you, Jay.
We're gonna
Do you
get
always
confused
play
here.
traditional grip or only when you play
No, no,
jazz?
no. I think most of the time when I play jazz, I feel comfortable playing that way. I really don't
Yeah.
get, I taught many students. A lot of them are professional musicians themselves playing out, which is a wonderful thing. When you see it's like all my students they ended up being like they're like your children. So
Yeah.
it's like because you get close to them, you give part of yourself to them, and every once in a while you do get somebody they write you back and they said, that thing you told me like 27 years ago. It finally clicked in.
That's great.
So
You know what? I can relate to that because I'm 60. Well, in a few days, I'll be 61 and a half. I'm always trying to get my wife to
oh,
make me half a cake. She never does it. But I'm in my early 60s and I'm still
yeah.
really close to my sixth grade teacher who's 93. So
God
I
bless her.
get that
Yeah.
connection in the other direction, the other way. We
Right.
have to remember if we teach music or anything for that matter, the impact that we were
Right.
really having on young, impressionable lives
I
and not just youngsters, but even people in their 20s and 30s. It really means something to be learning to play music. Are you kidding me? Like music seems like magic until you learn how to play it,
Oh,
and not to take away from the magic, but so
yeah,
that's a
it's
really neat
endless.
thing
It's
that they reach
endless.
back to you. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that if you think you got it down, you're mistakenly wrong because it's
Yeah.
always something to learn,
Oh
and
my
you'll be
gosh,
a fool.
yes.
Look, why do you want to have it all down? You want to be, when I see these little kids that are like prodigies playing, the thing is, I always tell the parents, let them have fun. It should be
Yes.
fun to play. You're not going to the finish line. There's no finish line. To get back on with the Nektar thing, because you have that thing underneath this way I gotta go.
Yeah.
Underneath my name here.
Yep. And we'll show the
Is
album cover again right here.
yeah, I'm in reverse right now because my keyboard's actually on my left side and it's on the right. But this album when we did it's like the biggest complaint of this album was that it's short because it's like 30 something minutes long.
Yeah. I was going to
And
ask if there's
well,
outtakes or anything. Like, what's up
no,
with
no,
that?
no, no, no. It was actually written for vinyl in mind. Because
Okay.
if you remember back in the years, a really good vinyl record was just about 30 something minutes because the lines on the record, it's one
Yeah.
continuous line. You want the space to have because you'll have a full sound out of it.
Yeah. Better
So
fidelity. Yeah.
yeah, the fidelity is killing it's absolutely smashing on vinyl. And this kind of a band, Nektar, is a vinyl band.
Yeah.
And the kids nowadays.
Yeah. While Jay's frozen, I'll mention real quick that my son Steve, our producer, did a review on earlier today that you can find. So check that out. And if you're into vinyl, get vinyl. This was
All right,
definitely made for.
they wrote. I'm gonna have to just come over your house,
I
but
know we should do that. We should do that.
yeah, gotcha.
Look, we will. This is never like a one time, opportunity or anything like this. We'll definitely do this again. One of the things that Jay was telling me before we went on, when we were on with my son Steve jumped on to say hi, is that he grew up with this in a musical family, and you mentioned that your father had played with Louis Prima. I'm really good
No, that
friends.
was my uncle. My uncle.
Your uncle, yeah. I'm
My
really
uncle.
close friends with A.D. Adams, who plays drums for Louis Prima Jr. and the Witnesses. And it's really neat that music is still so relevant today. My wife
Well,
is,
then you got Tito Puente Jr.
yeah, oh
His
yeah,
son is
yeah,
playing. He's got a killer band.
yeah. And my wife's really into jazz and swing, and I love swing and big band. We listen to a lot of that, but it's great
Uh,
that that's still relevant.
doing
That's what,
Lionel Hampton stuff. So
yeah,
you have people that are keeping the torch going for the legends that were before, and not they're not that they're imitating them. I work with a guy named Stephen Maglio doing Sinatra stuff. He's one of the biggest Sinatra guys in New York and in the tri-state area, and we work with a big band every month at the Cutting Room, and just keep busy. For some reason, tribute bands happen to be just as big, if not bigger, than some of the major bands that are
Yeah.
playing. You know,
Oh
I
yeah.
work with a band called Good Stuff, and we play Gino Vanelli
Oh,
and it's Sting and Stevie Wonder. But the main part of the band of musical content is Steely Dan stuff.
that's
So
cool.
we and it's they should check that out.
Yeah.
Go to Good Stuff, and they can check out other things that I'm involved in.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have another clip that I want to show of Jay playing with Nektar. Check this out. Really great music. I hope you guys are able to get on the road in the US. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, we did some shows already around the New York, New Jersey area, and also the Midwest. We did out Chicago and down around.
Okay.
There's talks for next year,
Great.
and putting things together. But the approach to get back with the Nektar and recording, you got to play the drum parts a certain way, because otherwise, what happens in any content of music is that if you go put too much drum things in, it turns into fusion music. And you don't want fusion rock music, not that that's a bad thing, but if you listen to Neil Peart or Carl Palmer, who were the prog rock band stuff that they did, and there's a lot of I did play some like Neil Peart stuff in this. The first track sounds more like if Ringo and Charlie Watts played in a prog band. And meets it sounds almost like AC/DC.
Right. I was telling Stephen that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, but it had that groove, and I can't take responsibility for that groove, because lo and behold, that was the only snippet that they had. They had a loop that Ron had done, and he played that groove. And the English cats have that swing, man. That's like nobody else.
Yeah.
And it was interpreted from the rock and roll swing from the 50s, and then they interpreted it their way, and it swung a little different, the lilt, and Ron had this beat that they used to play that tune, but it played it throughout the whole tune. So I said, and then they looked at me and they go, "What would you?" They didn't tell me how to play any drum part in any of this album, but they asked me. They go, "What do you think of this drum part?" And I go, "I wouldn't change it, because I want Ron to be on this album." And
that's cool.
That's a thing. So that drum beat is really what Ron did. Everything else is sort of like my amalgamation of thought of all the different guys that I thought that would be like if a kid wanted to learn a song and they want to get into prog rock, because I got to play anything, but just don't.
That's a good place to start.
So it was about the songs being songs. And I played in a Genesis band years ago, back in the early 80s. And Phil Collins is another one who's an unbelievable statesman for playing prog rock, and just a great drummer in general. So that's all the stuff that, when you look at it, it's you play a certain way that doesn't go into the realm of sound like Brand X,
Right.
That was Phil's way of doing Brand X, was his prog side. He had the chops to do that, and he went that way. And I think, if somebody like Carl Palmer has more of a classical background.
Yeah, exactly. Dave Black was his biggest influence, jazz player.
Okay.
There's always so much to talk about. We can never squeeze everything into one interview with folks.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
definitely do this again. Steve and I are building out the schedule still for the rest of the year. We'll get you back
Yeah,
on. There's
yeah.
so much to talk about. But congratulations on the album, man. It's really good. If you're a prog fan, you got to get it. If you're a classic prog fan from back in the day in the 70s, you got to get it. There's really wonderful hints and nods to that era of music without the album sounding like it's out of date or anything like that. It's still fresh, which is really cool. That's a really neat balancing act that you guys achieved there. So hang on the line with me for a moment after we say goodbye. But I want to thank you so much for taking time and getting us hooked on new Nektar, man. So
and
cool.
Thank you for having me on the show with your viewers. Definitely send me a link. I'll put it on my Facebook page. I have over 3,000 plus or 4,000 people on there, and I don't even try. To me, it's just like if people find me, they discovered me. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, I try to, like I said to you, I wrote emails to you guys. To me, it's not about showing off. I'm in the process of just living a life, and it just happens to be, I'm blessed with being able to do music. And I think, you know, to me, I get people away from their life for a second. It could be having a miserable day or miserable year. They come and hear some music, and I make them happy for a couple of hours, and you know, show kids. People, big guys, little people, or you know, little guys, how to play drums and approach things differently. You know, it's like, you know, it's just have fun in music. There's nothing that makes me more happy to find out somebody that comes up to you and they go, you know, I played drums when I was a kid. I bought an electronic kit. I have it in my apartment, or I bought a drum set. I put it in my house, and I'm getting back to playing again. And I go, God bless. Just do what you want to do. You know, don't go anywhere except have fun. You know,
exactly. And the rest will take care of itself.
Whatever, you know, it's like that. That's it. You know, if you want to get with some other guys and play and have fun, you know, whatever happens, you know. So Dan, thank you for having me on the show.
Sure. Thank you, Jay. And thank everybody. Thanks for following us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Vimeo, and X, or whatever that guy is calling it who's destroying the internet. Thanks for following what we do. Check out our new membership site at www.drumtalktvbrilliance.com. A lot of really cool things happening there. And we'll see you soon, folks. Thanks.